morning guys, I've come out to the Rubicon River a couple of hours out of Melbourne for just a couple of nights camping. It's the middle of winter, it's freezing cold, but it is beautiful clear skies and it's not raining, so I'm very happy about that. Now Bluetti has sent me this AC70 to field test. I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to do that. I'm going to be writing up a fairly big blog post about it with all the details and the pros and the cons and what it will and won't do. So check under this video for more details about that. But I thought I'd give it a test out in the field, because what I'm looking to do with a system like this is drive my little induction cooktop. Now I've been testing battery systems and induction cooktops and just this whole electric camping sort of idea versus gas for a couple of years now, and I feel like this one's actually sort of hit the sweet spot between, you know, price, size, weight and capacity. It's got a 1000 watt AC inverter in it and 768 watt hours of power, so it's quite a big battery, and it's got that enough AC power to drive my induction cooktop. Now smaller systems like this often don't have enough AC power to drive an induction cooktop, which can use up to 2000 watts of power, but the induction cooktop can be dialed down to 1000 or 800 or 600, which will give it, you know, put it within range of what this is capable of delivering. So I thought, well, this is a good opportunity to give it a go. So last night anyway, I cooked up some fajitas for dinner. Got this fajita kit here, and I thought this would be a good test for the AC70 because I can use the induction hot plate. I've got this little steel pan here. It's a non-stick pan, but it's actually steel, not aluminium, so it'll work on the induction hot plate. The idea here is to basically test to make sure that the AC70 will actually run the induction hot plate and cook a whole meal. So I'm going to cook some fajitas for dinner, and then tomorrow morning I'm going to cook some bacon and eggs for breakfast and just see how it goes. Making quite a lot here, probably more than I actually intend to eat, but you know, maybe there'll be some leftovers for later on. So I'm actually out here camping just for a couple of nights in Melbourne, doing some work on our house and a few other things. I managed to find a couple of days that I could get out camping, and as it turns out the weather's absolutely perfect. It's freezing cold. Like last night it was below freezing, woke up this morning and the grass is all frozen, everything's nice and crispy and cold, but blue skies and you know, no wind, no rain, so it's about as good a winter camping as you're ever going to get, and makes you want to eat some nice hot food because that's going to warm me up. So anyway, we'll fire up the AC70 here and cook all the veggies, then I'll take them out, then I'll chuck the chicken in, cook that, and then we'll mix it up with the fajita seasoning, which is in this packet here, and yeah, see what we can come up with. So we'll turn on the AC, turn on the induction hot plate, power, just turn it down to 1000 so it's not actually overloading it. There you go, she's running there using 1025 watts, slightly over that's 1000 capacity, but it's working right, and I can feel that getting hot already. Bit of butter in there. It's looking good. Probably got enough to feed about 3 or 4 people here. So it's going to be interesting to see how much power it takes to cook a whole meal. So we started at 76%. We'll see where we end up. Hopefully I've got enough left over to cook some breakfast and make a couple of cups of coffee in the morning. So while the veggies are cooking, I'll chop up the chicken. Let's turn that power down a bit. Needs to be a bit slower. Getting there. Let's see how we're going here. Alright, we've used about 20%. Hello. Alright, I'm going to put a bit of seasoning in there now. Normally you'd pre-season the chicken and, you know, I'm doing it the easy way. Get a bit more veggies back in there. Bit more seasoning. Maximum flavour. Alright, so it's basically done now. We've used about 50% of the capacity of the AC70 there. We've gone from 76 down to about 26%. So quite a bit of the power, but it is a fairly decent meal that we've cooked here. So I've got enough for at least 5 or 6 fajitas here, no problems at all. More than enough for me, that's for sure. And there we go. So I will enjoy this and a couple more, and I'll see you again in the morning for breakfast when we'll try and make a coffee and cook some bacon and eggs, and do that with the remaining 25%. We'll see if that's feasible. So it used about 50% of the battery power to cook that dinner last night. I also boiled the kettle yesterday, and I recharged my drone batteries, and I recharged my torch, recharged my phone. So I've been sort of using it off and on for the last 24 hours or so, and we're down to about 25% power now. So I'm going to see how it goes cooking my breakfast. I'm going to have some bacon and eggs for breakfast. I'm going to boil my little kettle and make another coffee, and just see if I can squeeze, you know, that out of the last 25%. Then when I leave here in a few hours, I'm going to head back to Melbourne. I'm going to basically put it on charge in the back of the Land Cruiser using the inverter, which is the AC power supply, which I've built into the Land Cruiser a while back, and I've got a video about that if you want to see how I did that. The benefit of that is that the AC power charging is much faster than the DC powering. Now you can charge this with DC as well. You can plug it into the cigarette lighter socket. You can charge it with solar, and I actually did get a bit of charge into it yesterday with my solar panel. Not a lot, because you know it's pretty pretty shady in here with all the trees, and obviously being winter there's not a lot of intense sun, but I've got about 5% of power in there over a couple of hours. It does come with all the cables you need. It's got the AC charge cable, it's got the 12 volts charge cable that's so you can charge it off your cigarette lighter socket, and it's got the cable to connect to the solar panel. So you've got options there, which is really what ultimately what we want is options. So anyway, on the way back I'll charge it with the AC power and see how much juice I can put in it in the sort of the 2-hour drive back to Melbourne, so that we can get a sense of, is this a viable sort of compact power supply for your road trips where you're moving every day, or you might set up for a couple of nights, but you've got enough sun to keep topping it up with the solar. And you know, this might turn out to be all you really need. You know, you can get bigger ones, but the question is how small can we get it but still get the job done, because ultimately traveling light and not carrying any more and not spending any more money than what we actually need to is kind of what we're trying to achieve here. Anyway, that's enough chatter. I'm going to get breakfast fired up, and then I'm going to make myself a coffee, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. Power on, power down to 800. She's a bit steamy. I've got a few wraps left over from my fajitas last night, so I'll make myself a bit of a breakfast burrito. This is not the best pan I've ever used, but battery in the camera went flat. The problem with cold weather is batteries don't last as long as they do when it's warmer. Okay, so where was I? It had just enough juice in it left to cook my bacon and eggs here, so not enough to actually boil the kettle, which is unfortunate, so I'll have to do that on the fire. But yeah, anyway, I'll have my breakfast, I'll get packed up, then I'll plug it into the AC inverter in the car and see how much charge I can get back in it on the way home. That looks pretty good. Alright guys, so it's time to hit the road. I've got the AC70 plugged into the inverter in the car here, and you can see it's generating 447 watts of charge power, and according to this it should be charged in about 1.7 hours. So we're going from 0%, so it'll be interesting to see. I've got about a 2-hour drive to get home, so in theory it should be fully charged by the time I get home, but we'll put it to the test and see how it goes. Right guys, I am back home now, and I just wanted to run through a couple more features and tests of the AC70 here. It did charge fully on the way home. It was a 2-hour drive. When it got home I opened the back and it was 100%, so it was charging at sort of over 400 watts, so that's probably taken less than, well less than 2 hours to fully charge, so that's good. That was from my AC inverter though in my car. That's a 1000 watt AC inverter which I installed, and as I mentioned earlier, I'll put a link below to that video if you want to go and see how I installed it, and I talk a bit more about this sort of the idea behind putting an AC inverter in the car. The gist of it is that you can charge a lot faster with AC power than DC power. Your cigarette lighter socket, as much as it will charge this, but it's quite slow, and that's a limitation of the cigarette lighter socket, nothing to do with the AC70. It's the same with anything you charge. It'll only give you sort of 110 watts out of the cigarette lighter socket. So by putting an inverter in the car, I'm basically able to pull more power out of the alternator. I used a 1000 watt inverter because I don't want to overtax my alternator, and it did the job. But anyway, moving along, so what I wanted to do, I just wanted to do a couple more tests. So we've already cooked a full dinner, and that used about 50% of the power of the unit. I cooked my breakfast, and that used around about 25%, which is obviously a smaller meal. So just if you think about meals between that sort of 20 to 50% of the capacity of the battery, that's probably going to be something that you can expect. But what I didn't get to do was test boiling the kettle, which is something that obviously making coffee is an absolute priority. And one of the good features about doing this is you don't have to have a campfire and you don't have to have a gas stove. So I got this little pop-up kettle which I found at Snowy's, which is awesome. I'll include a link to this down below if you want to grab one of these. Besides the fact that it's small and light, it only uses about 1000 watts of power, whereas your typical kettle will use a lot more than that. It'll use over 2000 watts, which would be outside of the scope of what this can do. So I found a small lightweight kettle, and I thought I'd give it a go. So what I'm going to do is actually put 500 mils. I've measured out 500 mils, which is roughly sort of 2 cups of coffee or 2 cups of tea or whatever, and we'll just see how long it takes to boil it, and more importantly how much actual power it uses. So I'm going to plug that in. We'll turn it on. Should be on, still on 100%, and it is. We'll turn the AC power on, and should be good to go. Now I can just flick the switch. There we go. So we'll keep an eye on that, and while that's going, I'll talk to you a little bit more about some of the other features. Now it has a powerlifting mode. Ordinarily you're going to get 1000 watts out of it, but it's got powerlifting mode for things like hair dryers, and I'm going to test this after and actually confirm that it does work. Sort of devices like electric blankets, hair dryers, heaters, things like that, which are basically have elements that get hot. So not complicated electronics, but they just draw a lot of power. Can take advantage of the powerlifting mode this has got, which should basically allow it to go up to 2000 watts capacity. Now bear in mind you're going to drain the battery twice as fast doing that, so I wouldn't personally be, you know, putting an electric blanket in my swag and thinking this is going to run it all night. But for something like a hairdryer, that's the sort of thing that you know, you might be into using. I don't use one myself, but I know people do. Now this one here, it's just a little Kmart one. It uses basically between 1,000 and 1,600 watts of power. So that'll be a good one to test that. So we'll do that after. And the other thing I wanted to mention too was that you can, if you want to expand the battery capacity of the AC70, you can attach a B80 expansion battery to it. And it doesn't connect with the B80 has a very fat cable, and I'll put an image on the screen so you can see what I'm talking about. It's got a very fat cable that's designed to go into the AC60, and so they can basically, you know, become one unit. It doesn't work with that cable on this, but there is a specialized cable that will connect the B80 into the DC port, the same port that the solar charging or the car charger goes in, and it does actually act as an expansion battery. So then you're going to get the sort of the capacity of this, which I don't have off the top of my head. I'll put it on the screen here, plus the 760 watt hours you've got in there, giving you a much bigger battery. I like that sort of option. I like the idea of sort of having potentially multiple smaller units that you can expand, because one, you can just start off with this unit and that might be all you ever need, and so you just buy that and see how you go. But then if you find, look, I really need more battery capacity because I can't recharge this fast enough, well then you can add to it, so it doesn't become redundant and now you have to go and buy a bigger system. You can just go and get one of these as well. And besides just adding power straight to this, you can actually run this separately as its own standalone power supply. Now it's DC only, there's no AC inverter in there, so you'll only power DC devices. But obviously you can charge, you know, any of your USB type devices, but also you've got a cigarette lighter socket out. So a good example might be a fridge. If you've got a DC powered fridge, you could have this over, you know, in one part of your car, one part of your rig, powering your fridge, and meanwhile this is somewhere else doing all the other work. But if you need to, you can connect them together. All right, we're just about to boil here, and we've used about 9%. Alright, so red light turns off. So that's 9% of the capacity, and you know, it did it. So that's good. We can tick that one off as confirmed. Now it's night time now, so I won't be having a cup of coffee because otherwise I won't be getting sleep. So we'll just slide that on out the way there. In fact, just unplug it and put it right out of the way there. All right, so that's a win. 9%, that's not too bad. I'm certainly happy to use 9% of my power for a coffee in the morning, which means, in fact, I would use about 18%, maybe 20%, because I'll need at least 2 or 3 coffees in the morning to get things started. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just in the app here, the Bluetti app. You can download onto your phone. Enables you to sort of control it beyond just the simple controls on the front there. I'll screen record this so you can actually see what I'm looking at here. 3, 2, 1, start. Okay, so what I can do here is I can go to power lifting mode, and you can see here it's got power lifting. I'll turn that on. Now this connects with Bluetooth. It's very easy to connect. You just turn this on and add a device in the Bluetti app. It finds it, connects with it. Couldn't be easier really. So I've turned power lifting on, and we'll now attempt to activate the hairdryer. So let's see what happens here. I'll turn that on. So it's on low, and it's using only 538 watts of power, so that's all right. So even on a low setting, it's barely even using half of what its actual rated capacity is, and that's quite warm, that air. So you know, there's a win. It's a simple sort of $15 Kmart hairdryer. Now I'll turn it up a bit and see what happens. Still only about 1,000 watts, so that's good. And it's only used 1%, so that's actually pretty encouraging, really. Although it's got a boost mode there. But that's cold. I was wondering why the power was dropping. It's because the air is coming in cold. So that's on the highest setting. And it's only using 1010 watts. So as you can see, I'm no expert at hair dryers. All right. So that's good. We've demonstrated that that works as well. So, you know, so I could have dried my hair easily in that sort of time I had that running. You might need a little longer than me. So okay, so we've tested that we can boil water. It uses less than 10% of the power to boil the water. I'm not going to get on into the nano specs of everything right now, because that's stuff I can put that in the blog post that's going to go along with this, and I can talk more about the features of the product and what I like about it and where it sits. But generally, I think this is a good product. I think it sits nicely in between the sort of the small baby, you know, sort of the tiniest EB3A, which is your entry-level product, which is also good, but it's not going to have the capacity to run an induction cooktop or a hairdryer or anything like that. It's just literally just for charging all your devices and very lightweight AC power usage. The AC70 is a step up from that. Also a great unit. That's a weatherproof unit, and I reviewed that earlier. I've reviewed the AC60 and the EB3A in previous videos. That's a good one. It's only a 600 watt inverter, so once again, it's not going to have the capacity to run an induction cooktop. Probably not going to run a hairdryer, but it will, you know, charge your laptop, power your lights, recharge all of your cameras and your devices and things like that. And it's weatherproof, as is the B80. They're a weatherproof pair. So if weatherproofing, dustproofing is a priority for you, then have a look at the AC60 and the B80 as a package. You can actually attach two B80s to your AC60 and get sort of 5 times the battery capacity of the AC60, but you are still limited to a 600 watt AC inverter. So, you know, like everything's a compromise. You've got to sort of figure out what's the sort of work that I do, what's the sort of trips that I do, and how and what unit's going to be best for me. Personally, I like to do trips where I'm, you know, moving a fair bit. I rarely spend, you know, a week in the same spot. Usually it's 1 or 2 days. So that's why I installed the inverter in my car, so that basically I can use this at camp and put it in the back when I'm packing up the car, plug it into the AC inverter and recharge it between that camp and the next camp, and when I get to the next camp I know it's fully charged. So this one, it sits a little bit above those two, and the fact that it's got 1000 watt AC in it, to me is a win, because it brings into play all the other devices like the hairdryer, like the kettle, like the induction cooktop, and not sure that it'll run a microwave, and I don't have one handy to test, but you know, you're sort of stepping up from just all your basic USB type devices and very small AC devices up to things you can actually cook with. And I think to me that actually is worth it, and it's still the same basic size package as the AC60 and the EB3A. So that's it, guys. I'm going to leave it there. If you want more information, look below this video. If you're watching this on our website, there'll be a pretty full-on blog post below this with a lot more detail. If you're watching it on YouTube, you'll see a summary below this video and a link to that blog post if you want to go and find out more. Also a link to the Bluetti website where you can go and buy yours. Give this video a like if I've helped you out any, and feel free to leave your questions and comments below, and I'm happy to answer them. And otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.